welcome back to Behind the Joystick. I'm your host today, Cordy Yikes, and I have with me Cora. How are you today?
Hi there, doing good. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. For people who don't know what you do or who you are, go ahead and introduce us.
So I'm Cora Kennedy, she, her. I am the director of esports here at Illinois Wesleyan. I also direct the Aurora Series, a marginalized gender tournament organization, and I get involved in the collegiate space in a million ways, doing publications, leading organizations, committees, etc. I'm also a freelance photographer, and prior to my time in esports, I was a high school math teacher.
That is awesome. I have seen some of your photography work, which is really awesome. I've seen it through your Instagram, and
Oh.
so you do have a delightful, keen eye to the camera, which is really awesome.
I have like 3,000 wedding photos to sort through from a friend's wedding I went to last weekend still. So yes, there's a lot more to go.
That's awesome. So now you're a director of not one, but two like esports um things. Do you want to go ahead and talk about those? You do a lot. There's a lot of things.
There's a long list. I guess yeah. I'll start. So I am the director of Illinois Wesleyan Esports, whose office I'm sitting in currently. I got involved and started in academic esports in 2018 as a high school math teacher. I then founded the high school esports team for that school because I felt like it. I basically asked my principal on the second day of new teacher training, "Hey, can I do this?" He goes, "Sure," and I had
Oh
trials 2 weeks later.
wow.
And then within 3 months, I'd gotten involved as one of the directors of the just newly founded Illinois High School Esports Association. I was then nonprofit founder, director, head streamer, student manager, and TO for 4 titles for the IHSCA for 3 years.
Oh
I've
wow.
TO'd tournaments of up to 2,000 students and ran that. And then coming here, I run a program that has our own building. We have scholarships. We travel a ton. I have 50 players, 2 full-time staff, 6 contract staff, 15 student workers, and it's all mine. And
Oh my
so
gosh.
as a program, I'm busy. I'm a little bit busy.
Yes.
This weekend is my first weekend off since August, and so I'm looking forward to sleeping.
Yes.
Except I can't because I'm also on call for the university this weekend.
Oh, fun.
I'm also a student affairs member. So esports at Wesleyan is classified under student affairs. So I
Mhm.
am part of the student affairs office. So I handle students concerned, after hours on call things, and stuff like that. And it's part of the course.
That is awesome. You definitely wear like many, many hats. How do you juggle through everything? Like what would your day-to-day be? Since you
Um,
haven't taken a break since August.
so Aurora Series is a side project. It is I was reached out to by some students last year asking, "Hey, can we do a marginalized gender esports series like you previously did?" Because I previously ran what was called the Cherry Cup. I ran a marginalized gender Valorant tournament on a really short notice through NECC, and so
Wow.
someone asked me to do it again, and I decided to do it for real. And so I made an organization. I have an LLC. I have 30 student staff, 4 volunteer adult staff, and from across the nation. And we currently run Overwatch and Valorant, looking to expand more and more. But it's first of its kind. We keep doing more and more cool things. And the problem with it is my calendar's messy.
Yes.
Currently, I'm roughly around 60 hours a week here at IWU. And then I go home and I work on Aurora series stuff. I have some Aurora stuff to actually do tonight. I'm gonna move that calendar reminder there. And then I also handle my photography work. I need to go edit some stuff this weekend still. And then beyond that, I work on publications when I get a chance. I have a ream of research on my desk currently because I'm working on some articles more on gender diverse perspectives in higher education and the impact that they can have. And then beyond that, most weekends are spent doing esports things for Wesleyan. We have matches every weekend. We travel, we compete. We've traveled a lot. This is our first weekend not traveling in quite a while. Our next one is on mid-November. So we have a lot going on, and I'm here for all of it. I do all of our media coverage. I have my camera on my desk currently, and then I try to work on my own freelance projects and creative things on the side.
That's awesome. So you mentioned that Aurora was like a quick project to kind of build. How long did it take you to do that?
Aurora series, a student messaged me in mid-October, and by October 31st, I had registration out last year.
Oh, wow.
And then we ran a full season for the spring of last school year. And then we're midway through our full season now for the fall, and we're going to keep expanding and growing and growing. Last semester, I ran as a test season, and then this semester it's been full fledged. I have sponsors. Logitech's been very nice to come on board and give us a lot of help with that. And we're now hosting a first of its kind LAN in Kansas City for our grand finals for the top four teams from both Overwatch and Valorant to come to Kansas City and partner with the Philadelphia land to use their arena space.
That is awesome. So it is kind of a like a congratulations on your 1 year mark then, since
Yeah,
today's the first now. How do you think year one was? Like what were your like struggles? What were your like highs?
a lot of the hard part for running an organization with this is student base. I want to make be for students by students. I'm in
Right.
charge to keep organization and handle money and decision making. We have two other adults in the room who handle a lot of the hard decision making, but students do everything else. So I think guess the hard part is I feel bad taking all the time of the students who get involved in this, but they want to keep volunteering, and I have to stop them and say no.
Right.
Like I had a couple students who I had to tell, like, please, please, I need you to sleep. You have schoolwork to do still. And beyond that, I also just the biggest struggle for me was not over investing myself in it because I've gotten burned out in organizations before, and it's
Mm,
been really hard. And so I've taken steps back. I've delegated things. I pushed things to other folks, and it's gone amazingly. I couldn't be proud of the organization, and the biggest success is honestly we had 26 Valorant teams registered this semester,
that
which
is
is
awesome.
absurd because all of them are created for Aurora series, and Overwatch we had teams created for this event. So like it's growing every day.
That is awesome. And so now you've also done things with the NECC games.
Mhm.
What was that like?
So for the NECC, I was their DEI director for a while, and DEI is diversity, equity, inclusion. I also was the leader of their community engagement committee, and I still serve on their partnerships committee.
Okay.
So really, the community engagement committee is where I made Cherry Cup out of this women's Valorant tournament. Just we spun it up in a really short timeline. It went awesomely, and it was a springboard to create Aurora series later down the line. But I also do advise on DEI matters. I'm one of the folks who does step up in the internal organization to help with things. And I didn't do a whole lot when I was there, to be perfectly honest. I was mostly committee based, but I'm still happy I could contribute.
Yes, that's awesome. Now, for DEI, for people who don't really like know what DEI is, like, could you tell us more on what that is?
Yeah, so DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, it's really about just creating a more inclusive environment in esports and higher education. Because one of the biggest things emblematic of esports currently is how it is really this bro culture and this tight knit group where folks who are on the outside looking in don't get this lot of space to be themselves or to have opportunities, even. And
Right.
so it's been really important for me when I'm doing DEI work to provide a voice for folks who may not have one in their space because I'm a director, so folks listen to me a lot, and I'm also one of one. I am the only transgender director in higher education in all of collegiate
Wow.
esports. I'm one of 5 staff that I know of, so I'm one of one. But I've had a lot of students come out to me. I have statistically the most queer program in the nation for esports and one of the most diverse because I also write the stats for that. And
Right.
so like it's really important for me to create that space and give that home to students because even though I'm not actively out there championing things every day, little things. We have flags, I have our jerseys, I have our pride stickers. Like it's just creating a space and students will come to that space once that happens.
And that's awesome because, like, in the beginning of the esports space or the collegiate scene, it was only certain groups, and then, it was mainly male dominated, So, like, for people to have a different diversity or wanting to be into something and they don't really have, like, I don't know, the strength to go in there. It's nice to know that there's someone nowadays, 5 years from now or 10 years from now, that there's people just like you that are in here with open arms. And I appreciate that. I thank you so much for
Yeah,
that for sure.
thank
It's
you.
also really nice to know that, especially like in the scholastic scene or even like in the collegiate scene, to have people who want to be a part of the esports and they're not really too sure how to even get involved, knowing that there's a voice, even just one voice, to really let them know that, hey, like, you're able to go into this. How have you been able to, I guess, like, provide that to like the collegiate side to like let them know, like, hey, you're still allowed in this area?
I stick my hand up and raise my voice in every way I can. I know that while there is no onus on me to be like this, I feel that there's an obligation to be really visible
Mhm.
because I'm one of one, and so I know that I want to provide a space and show folks that you can be out here, and I'm trying to take that attention so you can start quietly and do your own thing.
Right.
For example, I get about a death threat a month right now.
Really?
Sometimes higher. It depends on how active I am, and I'd rather I get that than students. I infinitely rather that because
Mhm.
to be honest, most of them are just people being dumbasses, and I don't really need to care. But like even the ones that I do have to care about, the FBI can solve everything, and
Yes.
I'd rather I deal with that than a student who doesn't know how to deal with it. I'd rather
Exactly.
I take that blunt. I'd rather I take that impact because it's really important for me to make sure that I can create a better space than where I came into. And well, what I came into wasn't this disaster of everything because I had a lot of support when I came out. I know
Right.
that I'm very lucky. And so I want to build that environment elsewhere, and I write these papers and I do these publications and I speak in all these places because creating greater awareness does help bring the whole scene up. A rising tide raises all ships, and I want to keep bringing that to the forefront.
Mhm.
And so far, I've really helped some directors get on board with my ideas and my thinking because they really do sympathize with it.
That's awesome. What advice would you be able to offer to someone who wanted to start advocating in this?
Um, Start in local communities, start where you can. If something's really meaningful to you, write it out because as much as I love rambling and speaking, it's hard to translate that. It's hard to give that to someone and say, "Here, understand this," because it's just you talking.
Right.
So I really instead like writing it out, getting some written thoughts out there in a document, in a thread, something, talking with leadership that I trust, and using trusted other folks in the space to help build this for me. An example I always tell students if they want to get involved doing advocacy work is start local. Start with the groups on campus, start with the office on campus, start with your own director, and just talk with them. When you get someone above you on your side, they can go to bat for you elsewhere.
For sure. That's awesome. Um, Also, especially like now within like the last few years of you doing this, how do you or what do you plan on seeing in like the next 5 years within the collegiate space?
I would really love, and this is an overall trend that needs to shift in the professional scene as well, of marginally attended tournaments to stop taking second class.
Hmm.
I'd love for them to stop being a sideshow and to start being a path to pro, just like Challenger Circuit or that kind of thing is. I would love for, in the same space, collegiate events to have more support because by and large, collegiate is still primarily male.
Yeah,
And I want to see that split change because, well, higher education is not primarily male, and nor is the country, and nor is the gamer population. So I would love to see that split because there's more folks out there, and I have more women in my program than most other places because we just offer a space for it and we show the representation. And the biggest thing I can say is if you're not representative of them as a leader, at least try to provide support for one of them to become a leader.
yeah.
I've had women as team captains since 2018, and it wasn't necessarily on purpose at the start. It was just like, you're a senior, go. And
Right.
over time, they found more folks like them, brought more folks into the fold who could be like them in that regard.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I guess to transition all of this, you've written for the TEA advocacy.
Hmm.
Um, how's that been? Like, what was the process for that?
Um, so I For context, I've been writing publications and papers on my own for a couple of years now. I'm formerly a teacher, so a lot of my education path, despite me being a math teacher, was writing. Because I have to write papers about students, I have to do a lot of analysis, all these things. Like writing's a very common thing for me now. And when I started writing about DEI work, it was just because it felt really meaningful to me and it was kind of written out of frustration. But
Hmm.
then I realized that other folks feel the same way. So when I started getting larger about it, I met a colleague of mine now, James Fudge, who is awesome. He runs the Esports Advocate. He's honestly the best esports reporter out there, and I'm so sad he does not get more attention because he's awesome. And he and I share very, very similar ideas. And he he's been an excellent mentor in the means of writing and doing professionalism with it, because I've been just saying things. I haven't had like a professional outlet to go with. It's just been on my page and
Right.
Medium and that kind of thing. So it's been really nice to work with him then to learn how to be more professional in that regard. And that kind of culminated in a paper that I co-published with with TEA, talking about how many, specifically women's spaces in gaming, only conform to very traditional views of femininity, and how that can lock out folks who may want to find that space but can't.
Right.
And that was very well received. I got a couple hate comments for it, but that's just the internet. And James went to bat for me every time. He's been an absolute wonderful mentor, and I still love seeing his work, because unlike most of the journalists who just report headlines and call it a day, he does research, he dives into things, he has sources, he has contacts, and he really does put the best effort forward that he can.
That is awesome. You also, speaking of Median, one of the articles that I like, kind of, I don't know, moved towards. It was the looking ahead in the DEI and the collegiate esports for 2024-2025 school year. Um, Part of it was like, I guess, captivating because um, you were trying to prioritize the students' experience. Would you be able to share like examples of how different the impact is in the esports towards that article? Like, what are your feelings on that?
Something I don't think a lot of folks realize is that a lot of collegiate esports is based on folks who started in esports and came to collegiate esports.
Mm,
I came from a different background. I started as a high school teacher.
right.
I'm started as a student first person. And I'm not saying others aren't student first, but primarily what I'm saying is that I see my life calling as working with students and helping others. That's something that I feel more strongly than anything else in the world. And my students mean the absolute world to me. So when I'm looking at student impact, it's really important for me to view their perspective, because I want to be the kind of person that I wish I had in college.
Mm,
I am not the ideal case. I'm not the average person. I'm not representing everyone, but I'm saying I want to be the kind of person I wish had in college. And I think a lot of folks, if they get along that mindset, it really does bode well for them. I The numbers have gotten better year over year. The
for
statistical
sure.
views have gotten better. I've helped co-author the Trends in Esports report twice now. It's gotten better. The data looks great, but it's only a small slice of it. And data cannot accurately represent non-measurable feelings.
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel about this program? How do you feel in this space, et cetera, et cetera. You can't use a pure metric to say, does someone feel safe here? And I've personally been reached out to by some students who said they want to leave their programs, they don't feel safe, as insert identity here.
Right.
I've had a couple students who say they don't feel safe living in the state they're in currently.
Yeah.
And whenever we travel across state borders to go to events, I need to sit down with my queer students and walk them through state laws. It sucks. It
Yeah.
sucks to say you can be arrested and put in jail for wearing a dress in this state.
Oh yeah.
Um, Tennessee, like we went to Tennessee for an event. I had to openly tell them, I love you. We can't do that because it is a felony and you're put on a sexual offender registry. And while they hated it, they understood because safety has to come first. And so
Right.
whenever I do all this advocacy stuff, yes, focus on queer identities because that's the one I know the best. But it's also focused on just marginalized folks as a whole and how culture wars and further marginalization is seeping into higher ed and especially esports because we're such a tight knit space. Everyone knows everyone, and so everyone knows there's certain space they don't want to be in, or hey, I don't like this certain program, or I think a best example is that there's students who just don't feel like they have a voice or that they matter because the adults above them have not given them the space to be like that.
For sure.
There's this stratification in collegiate sports of programs focused on competition and then community. And there's a big gap between them. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm not saying my program is perfect, but I know that programs that are more focused on community tend to see better cultural results for students versus programs that are focused on solely competition.
For sure. I feel like it's a good start to really like let them know like communication is number one. and that's the main thing you need to focus on. For people like say like for me, right? Like I I can say that I'm supportive. I'm here for you whenever you need me. Like I'm in open arms, but I feel like I could do more to kind of I guess be a part of what people are trying to stay for themselves. What would you say like for me or for like people in this space who are still trying to learn more about like the DEI and like the collegiate sport? Um, what more could we do?
Honestly, what I've really found the most effective is just using your social media and your social presence for good.
Hmm.
I'm not saying every one of my posts is rah rah activism,
For sure,
but I make it a core point of what I do and I don't hide it. Now, I've had a lot of tumultuous thoughts internally about how do I stay politically apolitical because I work in higher ed and I'm a director in higher education.
for sure.
The onus is on my position to be apolitical in my conversations, but I can't because my identity is a core part of a culture war. So where did that line get walked? And I know that I can't, as a person who works in higher ed, I can't go around talking about politics all day on my social media because it's not how I needed to operate. But
Right,
I can still make my thoughts known. I can still stand up for what's right, and I can still do what I need to do in order to promote the better health of my students. If I really focus on my students first and talk about the things that affect them, no one can match me for it because it's my kids.
right. That's awesome. I love that so much. Ugh, I wish this was like a real sitting thing. I would just want to hug you and just say, like, thank you for everything that you're doing, because it's so hard to go off. Like for me, I have friends, who are transitioning or going through things, and where they feel like they don't have a voice in the esports space, and I can go there and I can tell them, you're doing your best. I'm here. I will fight your fight. But it's like I feel like I need to do more. Um, I just don't know where to start in that. And
A
I
lot of it's
just,
listening. A lot of
yeah,
it's listening and just being a space to an event because a lot of times I can say this from personal experience. I felt very uncertain if I can even say some of my thoughts because they're not something that a traditional cishet person would really understand,
for sure.
or they would come off negatively to someone who's not like me. And so the struggle that I've really felt is that I've had to keep my thoughts silent because I understand that the way it will come off to folks who don't know me is very different. Not that
Hmm.
they're controversial, but it's just stuff that's not cishet normative. And so providing a space where folks can be themselves, they can call it like it is really important. And beyond that, it's then saying, like, when you ask, what can I do to help? A lot of times there's an onus of, like, I don't know. But really, if it's understanding someone's story and using it to provide an onus for getting out there more,
Hmm.
that's good enough.
For people who want to be a part of the esports space, and they want to do more than either coaching, or they want to kind of be in your steps to where you're not the only one, what advice would you give to them to kind of like um, be a director, or do what you do?
Directorship, I came into it a very non-traditional way because I came from teaching.
Hmm.
The general advice, though, is get involved as a student and try to build up a resume of working in esports and higher education from being a student leader in your own club, in your organization, etc. Beyond that, it's donate your time, and a lot of esports before you land a job, a lot of esports is volunteer. I
Hmm.
hate to say it, it's
It
supposed to make a
is.
living, but a lot of esports is sticking your hand up and saying, "I'll do it." And the IHSCA, they had to stop me from volunteering for things I did it so much. Like, that's who I am. And so I
Right.
think if you get your name out there, get your face out there, and get involved in a million places, you will find more opportunity.
That's awesome. And now the last question I usually ask everybody that I definitely have to ask you: what would you tell yourself, knowing everything you know now, post esports? What advice would you give yourself?
Honestly, what I've been telling myself since I started transitioning was just chase your happiness. I think the hardest part that I've really dealt with is that I keep holding myself back saying I shouldn't do something because someone might not like it, or I'm afraid of how others might view me, or X, Y, and Z. And it comes down to really just chase your happiness. Find what makes you happy and pursue that above anything else, and it will lead you in a good direction. Do it strategically, of course. Don't just blindly run it like, I'm going to buy a million things and start doing this. But,
For
like,
sure.
do it strategically, but chase your happiness.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for this interview. I really appreciate it. I think I've asked everything I wanted to ask. I feel like I'm going to sit and cry now because I'm just so happy. I am. For people who want to find your socials, what would be like the best way to reach out to you?
You can find me on Twitter or Insta at TheRogueCora at the Rogue Cora. You can also find me on LinkedIn. It's pretty easy, or my Discord is just Rogue Cora, and I'm happy to talk anytime.
Awesome. Cool. And I will make sure to put all those links in the show notes or in the description if you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify. So, yeah, thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Cora, for being here so much. I really greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And we'll see you guys next Friday. Bye.
Bye.